Greetings Factorians, here's Tequila. Today I'm going to present you my compact factory producing one rocket and 1000 science of each type every minute processed with cars and belts. The factory is fed by trains, which bring only raw materials for production. After that step, all items are carried by cars and conveyor belts. This allows very high throughput of items for only one belt. The idea for the factory came thanks to few people using cars and belts for producing only plates. It was Cooper from Silas Gaming based on the blueprint from Alexab. So if we can produce plates with that kind of processing, would it be possible to make an entire factory this way? Of course it is, but it takes a bunch of time to make it work. Using cars and belts leads making car loops for each type of processing lines. 1,500 cars in 14 car loops are used to produce and consume 1,000 science per minute. To control when cars are released from each stop and inserter synchronization, we use a signal with 4 different clocks that we spread in the whole complex. A tile of blue belts needs 11 ticks to release a car. Because of that, 3 clocks are precisely calibrated so we can divide them by 11 and use the result to control each car stop. And the last clock is set to be synchronized for furnaces with 10 beacon processing times. To sum up, we got the blue clock for furnaces, the red clock with short period for the bus line, the yellow clock with a medium period for most recipes with a short craft time, the green clock with a long period for long recipes like rocket parts and lamps. All car inventories has been set up with slot filters to ensure that they are filled up with the necessary amounts of resources for each loop. First, let's see how plates are made. The copper ore is dropped by trains at 3 stations. There is a large furnace line which takes ore from 2 of the stations, and a second smaller one which takes input from only 1 station. To transfer items from a train to a car, I worked with Alexab to make a blueprint which allows the car to be filled with 6 stacks inserters working from a container to another for fast loading. Because it's not easy to balance resources between cars for the input, the train can leave the station as soon as one of the cargo wagons is empty. To do that, buffer chests are read in order to check the amount of resources. If they draw below a threshold, it means that one of the cargo wagons is empty and the train gets a logic signal that allows it to leave the station. After that, the car goes into a long ride between beacons and furnaces. Input and output inserters are clocked in order to activate them only when a car can be reached. At the end of the loop, all plates produced have been transferred into the bus loop. There is only 1 station for stone, and it is processed in a similar way. The process is applied to create bricks, and the remaining stone and newly generated bricks are transferred into the bus loop. The iron ore needs 4 train stations to bring the necessary amount to the factory. We split the iron and steel plate production in 2 loops producing both the same amount of iron and steel. First, cars go through a furnace line making iron plate. Then, if there are no steel plates remaining in the car inventory from the previous loop, iron plates are transferred into steel plates in the second part of the loop before being transferred into the bus. Car loops are unable to cross railroads, meaning that all train stations had to be placed on the same line with a drop-off on the same side. Now let's talk about our refineries in plastic. Those 2 train stations are used to drop crude oil and coal. Crude oil is stored in fluid tanks to allow refineries to work all the time. We use 14 refineries surrounded by 16 beacons, some oil cracking and full fluid tanks to control the perfect ratio we need for each type of oil and petroleum gas. While the lubricant is directly made here, we take a pipe of gas out of the refinery complex in order to produce sulfuric acid later and a pipe of light oil for the rocket fuel. 2 pipes of petroleum gas are necessary to maintain the plastic production. It is for that reason we produce plastic directly next to the refineries with the coal drop-off, same way as before. Then plastic and coal are transferred into the bus line. Talking about the bus line, without cars, we need 62 belts of various resources to produce 1000 science per minute. Thanks to the car inventory that can carry a very large amount of products, 62 belts become 1 loop for cars and belts. The bus is a link between all loops by picking up items and making distribution between all of them. Now we need to produce circuits. Circuit production is the biggest loop of assembling machines. The 3 types of circuits are made here. First, green circuits, then advanced circuits, and finally processing units. Because red and blue circuits use many of the green ones, when the factory first starts up, we need to bring a few green circuits back earlier in the loop in order to correctly feed all the assembling machine. However, once the whole factory has been started, there are enough leftover green circuits from the previous rotation that this is no longer necessary. We try to have mostly one input and one output inserter for each assembling machine, but sometimes the throughput is so high that a single stack inserter can't handle it, like copper wires. So we have to use another card to be able to use as many inserters as necessary to guarantee that the process doesn't deadlock. And again, circuits are transferred into the bus loop. Let's take a look into the rocket production. The rocket's parts come from 3 different loops, and a 4th loop is used to produce sulfuric acid in the satellite. The loop producing rocket fuel is next to the refinery complex to have a very short pipe distance for light oil. First, chemical plants produce solid fuel in order to feed assembling machine for rocket fuel, then the rocket fuel is stored for both silos and a bit goes into the satellite car loops to its construction. Because of the very long rocket launch animation time, 2 silos are built to send 1 rocket every minute. The loop for the satellite needs few items from the bus, then sulfuric acid is made for the whole factory as well as satellite parts. It also takes off space science pack from silos. The loop for control units takes circuits of each type of the bus to directly produce speed modules and rocket control units. Those are dropped off at both rocket silos. The loop for low density structure also takes resources off the bus. It then drops off items for the silos, the satellite loop, and finally, the science production loop. This last subfactory makes all other science packs. The loop for science processing is a bit more complex as compared to the other loops. The car inventory is precisely chosen so as to ensure all assembling machines are working all the time. Observing all the different slots filters in the car inventory, this is conceptually similar to builds which use a sushi belt. All science packs, including military, are produced here. Some assembling machines need buffer cars or tanks to let those machines have more than one input inserter. This mainly applies to the assembling machine making electric furnaces necessary for production science packs, or those making walls for military science packs. All science packs are dropped off at the very last loop, the laboratory loop. And finally, we have laboratories where everything is consumed. We need a bit more than 50 labs with 10 beacons to consume 1000 science per minute, so we have built a small loop of 52 labs to be able to consume all the science pack we produce directly and the few that are stored when we start everything. With the exception of space science pack that come from the satellite loop, all other science packs come directly from the previous science loop. Within the factory, bots are used only to fuel trains with nuclear fuel. This allows the trains to have a good acceleration and move fast. Nuclear fuel is produced in a little sub-factory. Mining outposts use bots for transferring ore from the mining drills to the trains. Last year, I have built the first version of this factory with 8 beacons for everything. I made a short clip on Reddit of the factory launching a car on the first rocket in order to win the game. I appreciate all the kind comments I got on that clip and the funny comparison with Elon Musk about launching a car into space, even though comparing myself to him wasn't my intention. The factory works without any mod, but I have used the editor extension mod and few quality of life mods to make easier the factory conception. You'll find the save in the comments, and because the factory must grow, let's build more modules. If you like this way of playing Factorio, let me know and I'll make tutorials on how to use cars on belt. I hope you have enjoyed visiting that factory. I wish to thank Alexen, Knight Elite, Puber, the Technical Factorio Discord and the Factorio community. Thanks for watching and take care.